Hey, what's up guys, Crazy here, back into Final Fantasy VII Remake, and today let's take a look at Materia. It's one of the most important items that you'll get your hands on in the game. It's something that you'll want to quickly slot onto all of your characters and in as many variations as possible so that you can pretty much cover all bases. In this video I kinda wanna go over a top 10 list of some of the best materia that I've been using through the game and something that should help you in the hard mode as well. So let's jump right into it, and as always, a thumbs up on this video would be super awesome. First, let's get started with a couple of materia that you can get really early on and are really useful. And my favorite here has to be the deadly dodge materia that you get to find in chapter 2, as a matter of fact, on the Midgar streets right next to this car right here after meeting Aerith for the very first time. So this is very hard to miss, but it's also very useful early on. And the reason for that is because it doesn't really cost anything to use it. It basically works like this. Once you dodge and immediately do an attack after dodging, it does this sort of AoE damage in front of your character. And the best part about this is that when you upgrade it to level 2 by just using it, it also does this sort of pull, so you can pull in enemies in front of you, and it's gonna make things even easier if you want to do more AoE damage to multiple of them at the same time. So again, bonus damage, bonus pull in the enemies, it's very good at both of that, so definitely something that you should be using both for Cloud as well as Tifa, because yeah, both of them work very well with this deadly dodge materia. The second one is the HP up materia that you also get to find as early as chapter 2, and you get to see this once you reach the 3 level the first time right next to this car right here. But unfortunately at first the game prevents you from reaching it because there's a bunch of Shinra guards all over the place. So the way you want to get this is to actually go ahead on the street, meet Aerith for the very first time, and after that you can backtrack your steps to the same car and take it off the ground. And even though it kinda looks like a boring old flat stat increase, you should definitely be using this on probably all of the characters, especially in the end game, and even more so if you've decided to play the hard difficulty once you have finished the game once, because this increases your HP by up to 50% at the maximum level, and you can stack it to up to 100% if you use multiple of these. Now this brings us at number 2, which is the auto cure materia, something that you get very early on from the first battle intel report that you complete for Chadley. So the way this works is that it automatically casts the cure ability if you use it on a character that has that spell equipped as well. So this can work really well with a character like Barret that already comes equipped with a cure ability by default. You don't even have to link these two materia orbs, you just have to put them on the same gear of the same character, and that is pretty much it. And at the first level it's only going to auto cast it up to 3 times during combat, but at level 2 it can auto cast it up to 10 times, which is extremely useful and definitely very worth it. The only 2 things that you have to keep in mind over here, or well, 3 things to be more precise. First, you must have the cure ability unlocked, so a healing level 2 materia or higher. Your character that you won't have to control must have enough mana points to do that, and of course you shouldn't be in control of that character, so that you let the AI auto-cast it on the party mates with the lowest HP. So definitely something very useful. The next one is gonna be the Magnifying Materia, something that you kinda get a little bit, you know, in the middle of the game. It's not really early on. You get it earliest in chapter 9 on the 3rd arm puzzle that you do in the collapsed expressway once you play with Cloud and Aerith in a party. So this is when you will actually get it. But what this does is that it expands the range of materia that it's linked to at the cost of reducing some of its effects, which luckily enough kinda decrease in severity once you reach the maximum level. Like only 25% debuff is what you get at the maximum level. But this is an amazing fit if you combine it with something like the healing materia or the revival materia, because this gives you access to mass heal or even mass resurrection for your entire party if that happens to be a problem. And yes, if you were wondering, this does work in a 3-way situation with the auto cure as well. So you would link Magnify Materia with the healing materia and also have auto cure slotted in any slot, and a character that you don't control like Aerith or Barret and can auto cast a mass heal on your entire party once you have all of these three combined, which is absolutely insane. On the maximum level, it basically keeps up your party going on 24/7 because of all of that healing that is going on your characters. Now this brings us to number 4, which is the elemental materia, and the way this works is that linking this with any elemental materia like ice, fire or lightning adds that elemental type damage to your regular attacks. So you can effectively make your sword, for example, catch fire and deal fire damage to your enemies, or likewise electricity or ice, which can be really useful. It works with all of the characters in the game, by the way, including the range attacks on Barret and Aerith, and it's definitely something that you should be using since it kinda gives you that extra edge. But do be careful that enemies that might be immune to a certain elemental will also be immune to the bonus damage that you have on your additional attacks, so you might want to play around with this and kinda be careful who you're fighting with. Now you will get your first elemental materia in chapter 6 in the mission that requires you to turn off the 3 lamps in the sector 4 plate, and after you turn off the 3rd one and go on the lower level where you fight these 2 big creatures right here, eventually you're gonna find this movable platform that also has a material at the top of it, so bring it lower than your actual level so you can then reach it and grab the MP up materia. This is gonna be extremely useful for casters, but then just bring it up again to your level, go down the road, and at the end of it, at the edge, you're going to finally find the elemental materia that's gonna make things a lot better for you in the early game. Now, since we've been talking about elemental attacks, this also brings us to the 3 most important elementals that you should have on your gear, which is ice, fire and lightning, something that you should have on at least one of your characters in any given party, and maybe later on in the game also wind and maybe some poison, though the first 3 of them were something that I've used like 80 to 90% of the time, since most of the enemies in the game are weak to one of these in one way or another. But you can get these really easy, really early on. I mean, Cloud already comes equipped with the fire materia, Barret already comes equipped with lightning, and you can get ice really easily from one of these caves in the Scrap Boulevard in chapter 3, in one of the very first missions that you get to complete over there. So just keep your eyes peeled for that. But you also have access to these at the first vendor that you get to meet in chapter 3 in the slums for just 500 gil each. But these are very important. You should have these, as I was saying, on your party at any given time, since most of the characters, most of the enemies in the game are weak to this in one way or another. You just have to assess them first to see exactly which weakness they have. On the 6th spot is another one that you get also very early on in the game, the First Strike materia. You get this as you reach Battle Intel Report 3 and complete it. You just have to like stagger 10 enemies. It's rewarded by Chadley for just 100 gil for the very first time, but it works really well. I mean, this lets you start battles with a filled ATB gauge. So what this means is that once you reach a fight, you can immediately start casting an ability or like use a spell, which can be extremely useful at immediately starting to stagger an enemy and not have any damage dealt onto your party. And yeah, if you just have a character that has a really powerful attack, maybe like a really powerful fire blast, if you start a fight with something like this, you can immediately start putting pressure on that enemy and start feeling that stagger meter faster and stun it and just take it down way faster. Again, very useful to have, and if you have the spare slots, you should probably have this on at least one character in your party. Now this brings us to number 7 and a very interesting materia and stat increase, which is the luck up materia. And you might be thinking, what does luck even do in this game? Well, the most important thing that it does is that it increases critical hit chance for that character, and it's definitely very useful on a character like Tifa that naturally has the highest luck of all of the characters in the game. So if you have something that increases that even more, you can essentially turn her in a critical hit machine. So you get the luck up materia really early on in the game in the 7th heaven bar in chapter 3 if you beat Wedge's score at the darts tournament. You just have to reach the first spot. It's something that you do after a mission or during a mission very early on. Once you meet Tifa in the bar, she goes in and you know, just plots with the team for the next attack, and you're kind of left alone in the bar for a few moments to go in and do some of that darts challenge. But if you beat the score and you complete the next mission after that, where you go to this Shinra facility to steal some explosives and come back, eventually you're gonna reach this point and Wedge is going to give you this luck materia if of course you have beaten his score. Anyway, on a final note, this brings us to the last few materia that I'm gonna quickly go over. Prayer and chakra materia is something that Aerith and Tifa naturally come with. Prayer is something that Aerith has by default and can be casted both on herself as well as on other characters without consuming any mana, just ATB charges. So this can be extremely useful if, for example, you've already wasted your MP and kind of want to still heal your party up. Chakra, on the other hand, is something that Tifa automatically comes equipped with, and it works slightly different than the other healing, as in it's only a self-cast. It also consumes just ATB charges, but it heals a percentage of the last damage dealt onto that character. So if you're fighting bosses, for example, that tend to deal really high damage, you can essentially heal up to half of that damage dealt onto your character with this chakra ability. So really useful, really fast cast, and doesn't consume any mana. And finally, the last one that I'm going to mention, and one very important materia that you also get as early as chapter 3, is basically the revival materia. And I was talking about that Shinra facility where you go with Biggs, Wedge and Jessie to steal some explosives. While on your way back into the slums, you're gonna reach a point on some streets where you will find this literally on the ground, and you should be able to take this because this works extremely well with the Magnifying Materia, as I was saying in the beginning of the video, as it lets you to mass resurrect your entire party with just one character. So yeah, very useful and definitely something you should have on one of the characters in your party at all times. Anyway, this is pretty much it. Of course, there's many that I haven't covered, though I found others to be quite situational. So for now, this is what will cover like 95% of the fights you'll be in. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, as always, don't forget to comment, like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and peace.